Today I messed up by not taking proper care of my car in prep for a long weekend drive. I've had my 2007 Subaru car for about a year and a half now. I got it intended to be a road trip mobile. It's in pretty good shape, with some little issues that come up here and there as one would expect with a car of its age. Admittedly, I haven't been doing the best job of taking care of it, driving on dirt roads, not checking tire pressure often enough, etc. And today I learned a big lesson. I drove yesterday to the White Mountains of New Hampshire, tilde 2.5 hours from my home, hiked all of yesterday, and camped at a shelter. When I got back to my car early this morning, it started alright, and I drove it for 7 or 8 miles before pulling over to call home and stretch my legs outside. I got back in the car, put the key in ignition and the engine didn't start. Huh? I tried 5 or 6 more times and realized, oh shit, what did I do wrong? Luckily the road I was on had 1 bar of cell service, so I called my dad to get his advice, and later AAA. An electrician drove by to offer assistance, and said that I was almost out of oil, and it blew the motor, which is why the engine didn't start. When the AAA tow driver came, he helped further diagnose the problem, which is that my starter was bad, and he took me to a parts store to get a new one. He did some kind of temporary fix magic trick to get the starter to momentarily work by tapping it with a metal rod. Really saved my skin there. Once it was up and running, I drove straight home, not wanting to risk stopping and getting stuck in any wilderness with an engine that isn't working right. Today I messed up by taking DNA test. My mom has been building our family tree and had done DNA tests for my grandparents on her side and one for my dad. My dad's ethic results seemed interesting, so I wanted to see what mine would be. My mom encouraged us to make one and everything was going fine while waiting for the results. I've been just building up my tree, which has been pretty fascinating. The part when I realized that I fucked up by taking the test. Results came 2 days ago. I scroll through my DNA matches. To my surprise, no one from my dad's side show up there. My dad doesn't show up there. Instead, there's some guy I've never heard of before, that I apparently share 50% of my DNA with. And of course, some other people I haven't heard of before that I share up to 25% of DNA with. The other half of people I know, around 25% DNA match with my grandparents. I look up what ethnic heritage my dad has, -20% Balkan. That doesn't show up in mine at all. It seems my mom has no idea about any of this. Today someone messaged me to share our family trees. I'm so confused and have no idea how to proceed. My parents seem to have a solid story about when and where I was conceived. Do I tell my mom? Do I keep this a secret? The best case scenario, and if I tell her, is that they attended an orgy 26 years ago or SMTH and we can all just forget about it. Today I messed up by not shooting my shot. A couple weeks ago I, 28M, was by myself at a bar that I go to pretty regularly. I was sitting outside, just looking at my phone and texting some friends about upcoming plans when I overheard a woman who was around my age talking to some of her friends about how she had been single for a while and wanted to start dating again. This caught my attention and my first thought was, damn, I relate to that really hard, because I've been single since before the pandemic. I guess I started eavesdropping because a few minutes later I literally heard her say, I kinda want to go ask that guy out. I looked around and realized I was the only other person out there, and honestly I found it a little exciting and flattering, but also knew she could have just been blowing off steam or something. I thought about it for a little bit and I realized it might be a funny icebreaker to wait until she leaves and say something like, hey, you're not going to ask me out? But I also didn't want to admit that I was eavesdropping or potentially put her on the spot or embarrass her in front of her friends, so I was debating it with myself. When she left we made eye contact and smiled at each other, but I completely chickened out and didn't say anything, and I've been regretting it because I don't always have opportunities to meet people organically like that. I haven't seen her there since, so I'm kicking myself and I really don't want to fuck up my next opportunity to potentially go out with a cute girl. Today I messed up by spending my wedding anniversary with another girl. On accident. Last Monday I went out with an old friend, female, whom I haven't seen for ages. We were both hard-pressed to find a time to see each other, so when we finally arrived at the meeting place, we were both pretty hungry. Luckily I knew a great steakhouse nearby. So we went for 2 amazing steaks. Overall, we had a ton of fun catching up. We planned to meet for just a couple of hours, but ended up only getting back home past midnight. With a promise to repeat this sometime later. So far this doesn't sound too bad. Well, the story begins couple of years ago, on my first wedding anniversary. You see, back then me and my wife had a couple of things planned for the day and eventually ended up starving in a random part of a city. Pondering that we actually don't want to cook today, we decided to find a restaurant. Unfortunately, we had no idea what we wanted. But while discussing that we stumbled upon a steakhouse in a relatively hidden alley. The steaks were pricey, but it's our anniversary, right? We can go for a good meal on this day. And it turned out to be an amazing decision. We accidentally discovered the most famous steakhouse in our city and the steaks were absolutely stunning. We have been going there every anniversary since, always having a great time and meal. Since I liked the story, I of course mentioned that to my friend during our meeting on Monday, that I know of the steakhouse by accident. And that it is actually really funny, because it's been actually this exact date in next month when we went here for the anniversary back then. You see, I am a guy that cannot remember dates. The thing is, me and my wife had the first date and wedding 2 months apart but on the same day of the month, so it's easy to remember the day. But for the love of me I cannot remember the months. And back at that fateful Monday, I thought our first date and our wedding anniversary is only 1 month apart. And I actually remembered the date of the first date. So I believed our wedding anniversary is next month. But it was that Monday. To add a bit more to the story, this friend I have met is someone who I used to have romantical feelings for. My wife of course knows about this. Well, earlier today, my wife expressed sadness that we weren't able to plan anything for our anniversary. I asked why, since it hasn't even happened yet. And that's when I discovered that I have not only missed our anniversary, but actually spent it in our restaurant with another girl that I used to love. And to top it off, had a great time. You may be asking why hadn't we been planning anything for the anniversary? That's because my wife's been ill for 2 weeks. She is good now. Today I messed up by rejecting a threesome offer. I don't go out often but last night I decided to hit up a classic arcade with some friends. All of them except for one left earlier in the night, leaving just 2 of us, myself included. Not wanting to end the night yet, we decide to go to a local bar and play some pool. After a couple rounds of pool we decide to sit at a table near the bar and chat until I felt sober enough to drive us home. We're chatting it up when all of a sudden I feel someone's finger tracing my back. I turn to my left and there's a gorgeous middle-aged woman reaching for the seat next to me. The first thing that caught my eye was her septum piercing. I'm a sucker for piercings. What are your plans for tonight? I literally never go out so I had no idea what to expect from this conversation or even what to say at this point. Oh, not much really. Why? My husband and I are wondering if you'd like to have a threesome with us. We're from out of town and rented a room at insert high-end hotel in downtown here, for a night. Immediately my eyes widen. I thought for sure this had to be some joke. I was so flattered, but also extremely nervous. First of all, I didn't have a condom and secondly, who's to say these aren't serial killers who are going to take me back to their hotel and hide my body? What are you guys into? Does he want to watch or be a part of it? I ask out of curiosity. Not that either would have been a deal breaker. I don't know, this is our first time. I contemplated it for a while, but ultimately explained that I was planning on taking my friend home that night and didn't want to leave him. She got up, said some flirty remark that I don't quite remember and walked to the bar. She stood by a man who I assumed was her husband. He turned around, and handed me a drink he had been ordering for me as his wife was talking to me. I thanked him for the drink and apologized once again. I talked about it with my friend for the next 20 minutes or so trying to decide if I should do it or not. Eventually I say fuck it. Might never get an offer like this again. But by the time I grew the courage to say yes I turn around to see another man at their table who I assume got the same offer. Did I miss out big time or dodge a bullet?